Hello everyone. GM.
Hello, everyone. How's been the weekend? Bit
Yeah,
bumpy, I guess.
because everyone is packing up to go to Vegas to Ape Fest at this point, right?
Yeah, there's been a chatter of who's gonna be there. Everyone's trying to hey, you're going. Everyone's
Yeah,
coordinating the dates.
I heard there are going to be some builders there. But
Yeah,
speaking of packing off, I guess this session, last session, the ninth, so the one actually last week, we finally pack up the camp into going live to production and getting clients, getting revenue, getting users, getting maybe funding, right, Alec? About
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, so we've done the process of ideation, like creating your online presence, like how do you actually reach out to your users, or the early, let's say, early adopters of your product. And today we are all about going live on mainnet. And we have a special guest among us. We've got Mr. James Hall, head of engineering at Yuga. I think if everyone here probably knows who James is. And
Hey everybody, how you guys doing?
hey,
Hello, James.
so yeah, just quick intros for who doesn't know. James is head of engineering at Yuga, does all the quirky stuff at Yuga, and we work closely at ApeChain as well. And we will cover some of the usual going live, let's say essentials, like what you want to look forward to, pitfalls, essentially your checklist before you actually put your product actually out to the real world for real users. And so without further ado, we could get started.
That's great. Hello, James. We would love to hear your insights about the
Yeah,
ape tech.
yeah,
What should
yeah.
people
Let's
use?
talk about it, man. Let's talk about going live is one of the most stressful and chaotic things that you can do as a product person, right? I'll probably lean heavily into the Gobs on Ape thing because it's my really first big thing that I did on Ape Chain on my own, kind of quietly and stuff. But prepping all of that and then getting ready, and then I'll actually talk about one of the big hiccups I had because going to prod, there's some things you don't think about when launching to prod is scale. At least for me, I was like, oh cool, I'm gonna do something small, probably have a couple of little bit of users at first, and it won't be a big deal. But I actually ended up hitting a big problem. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So. Yeah, so I assume everyone's been building on the test nets and Curtis and everything, and then so now you have to move everything up and over onto mainnet, and that's always a struggle thing. And here's a couple of things I do. This is just kind of what I like to do, just because for future reference and for future things when building, especially this is more geared towards maybe NFT projects, but you could probably use it anywhere. And maybe you guys have already discussed this, but I use a testnet wallet and I use a prod wallet. And I don't know if you guys have discussed doing that or not. Have you guys already talked about doing that or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mainly because I just don't like seeing a bunch of crazy stuff on my main wallet. I try to keep my production wallet as clean as possible because people are going to look at wallets and people are looking all over the blockchain on things like that. So I always keep those two separate. And so sometimes I'll actually test launching to prod on my testnet wallet just as different things just to see if it launches okay. And then I'll use my when I'm ready, I'll have I might go through a couple of production wallets if I'm being honest, if it doesn't look right. Because I've had it before in the past where I'll launch something and something's broke. I'm like, all right, cool, that wallet's burned. I can't use that again. It gets me so upset. But making sure so make sure you have a really nice clean production wallet. And then also just making sure you've cycled through all of your API keys, right? Sometimes you might need a different so usually you want to make a test list or a checklist is what I do is okay, cool. Here's all the providers I'm using. I'm using Alchemy. I may be using, well, I was going to say Reservoir, but using all these different APIs. Do I need to switch them over? For Alchemy, it does mainnet and then it also does Curtis. So you have to make sure that's switched over because I've had it happen in the past where I've launched to production and it's not working. I'm like, what is happening? And you finally dig through the logs, oh my God, I forgot to change the RPC call. So making sure you do all that. And then, I think it's just important to do test runs, right? And here's the thing I find I've not done a lot. even in like, in my QA/testing is like the failure ways. A lot of us as developers are doing the happy paths. Make sure it errors, right? Like if it errors, make sure it's erroring gracefully. Make sure you put in the wrong amount of things. Make sure you do those things. And, in my opinion, when you launch a product, when you launch an experience, you only have one chance for a first impression, right? So folks are going to come to this thing and it's got to be buttery smooth. You've got to like make sure it feels right. Make sure that it's not hiccuping. Make sure that, like if there's an error, it's easily understood why. Like don't make assumptions. Oh, the user will know X, Y, and Z. No, they won't. No, they won't. Like you got to make sure like you're developing for apes, the dumbest folks. I love apes. I'm just kidding. There's been a little bit of a heat over the weekend about some of that, but no, you need to really make sure that everything you have is really buttoned up for the end users. Launching to production is a big deal, and so make sure if you're using a database, you have a production database. Like all these things matter, and it's a lot of chaotic work. So then making sure you have a good domain name. That's important too. And one thing about domain names, many folks don't realize this is the .xyz domains sometimes get flagged when sending emails, and sometimes like it gets flagged as spam. So using .xyz emails sometimes come with challenges about like if you're trying to do automated emails, like if you're like, oh hey, thanks for an account creation or XYZ happened, and you're trying to notify the user, you may get thrown into the spam folder. So you have to work on those things. But I'm ranting and raving. I'm going to take a break for a second. Is this kind of the stuff that people want to hear, or I'm happy to kind of delve in different directions as well?
No, that's absolutely. I mean, like these are what you just mentioned, I think is applicable for every project. Like, I mean, API keys, your DBs and stuff like that. I mean, it does. Yep.
Have we talked about analytics?
No, we haven't covered analytics yet.
Analytics is something, as a developer, I hate putting in just because it's such a pain in the butt to put in, but it's so important. And even if it's the most minimal thing, putting in Google Analytics. If you don't want to put in Google Analytics, you can put in, oh my gosh, I'm spacing up, Plausible. Plausible is a tracking analytics like firm, but they're a little bit more like on privacy, so they don't like share a lot of the data and stuff like that. It's a little bit of a more lightweight touch for when it comes to analytics. But here's the thing: when you're creating a product, you're not going to be able to talk to the few users that you get because people might randomly come across it, right? So it's good to have analytics for page loads, page views, button clicks. As much as you can put in now is probably worth it just to see where people are falling off. Even if you don't understand analytics as a whole, if you just have page views and button clicks. So anytime you create a button in your code, anytime you have a page, just try and make sure analytics is firing off. Someone pressed this button, someone viewed this page. It's going to give you a lot more insight than just trying to ask around and trying to guess what people are doing. And it's also something that I find is people usually don't think about when they're crushing things out, because vibe coding doesn't really suggest, hey, you should put analytics in. But if you go to Cursor or you go to Claude Code or whatever you're doing it in, you're just like, hey, I want to put a little bit of the analytics on here. I bet you it'll spend a probably good like half hour putting in some stuff for you, and it will pay off in dividends in the long run because you'll understand what your users are doing better. And maybe you're seeing they get to the landing page, they get to they get to the sign up page and they sign in, but then they fall off somewhere else. Like, okay, cool. They sign in, but then they don't know what to do next. How do I make it to where we have like the first time user experience a little bit better and stuff like that? So yeah, analytics is important.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, go on.
This is one of the benefits of using those serverless services. For example, Vercel. We showed that in the first session. And one of the things that you can have with either Vercel, Cloudflare, both those data as well, you can have the deployment with all of the tracking if the services are up, if you have uptime, if they're answering, if they're measuring the health of that. Even if you're not a developer, most of the apes following this camp are non-coders. So it kind of can be a little overwhelming to set up a health tracking dashboard. Yeah. These kind of serverless services, they set all of that for them. So it's kind of good to have that as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. I forgot that typically a lot of those like new platforms add a lot of that stuff in, like observability and stuff that kind of come prepackaged for you. So I think that's always beneficial. Anything that you can use that's already kind of been built, I think is always like a good thing to use. So I think we may have lost Matthias here. He looks a little frozen, but
Yeah, I think he's having certain connection issues. But anyways, I wanted to go over like Vercel is one side of it, like these cloud platforms that help you with all the deployments, things like that. Let's talk about a bit about like Supabase and how do you actually maintain like user database, your things that you want to like watch out for, security practices, all of that, like, and it's essentially like no-nos when it comes to going live.
Yeah, what's funny is I've not used Supabase a lot, to be honest with you. Like I'm so like old school. I'm very much used to like spinning up my own database somewhere and hosting it on that. But I actually used Supabase recently with something I can't talk about. But it's so easy now to actually get these databases up and running. I use Railway more than Vercel. I don't know if you guys have talked about Railway or not, but I use Railway. It's the same thing basically. It spins up these databases for you. Be safe with your keys. Be safe with your environment files, which I'm sure we talked about in GitHub and stuff. Do not store the env files in there. And then when you're doing like database queries, there's a lot of things you have to be careful for, like with queries and like allowing, like if you're doing searches, mainly if you're trying to search for something, because searches usually hit the database and that's where a public kind of like goes to type in things. You just want to make sure that you're sanitizing the queries, making sure that they're not doing any kind of like queries inside there, so any kind of injections. But I think for the most part nowadays, I bet these like these vibe coding like IDEs and stuff like that prevent a lot of that stuff because they know to watch out for that. But I think it's just trying to be proficient and trying to be like efficient with your database queries. I think it's going to be hard for me to say like, hey, make sure you're really looking at the queries that you're doing, because like we're vibe coding and we've not really had to look into like what we're doing from a database, scaling perspective. But, I think it's just trying to make sure you're not getting too complicated, even like not letting cursor or anything go too crazy. Like, okay, I've updated this query. I've updated this query. If you see a query getting updated a lot in the code, you might want to get a little sanity check on it. Maybe ask someone if you can. Be like, hey, this. If you see it like a really long query, that's usually like a little problematic as well. I think AI sometimes likes to be a little like overzealous with how it writes its database queries, and I typically have to like reel it back in and just be like, hey, I'm only looking for this. Can you please like make sure we're being as proficient as possible? Use indexes. Like now, that might be super advanced, but if you tell the AI like, hey, I want to use indexes, I want to make sure we're being smart with this stuff, it'll do a lot of those things for you. I feel like I'm getting too technical. I feel like I'm getting way deep in the weeds here.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I would say that if you actually like storing user data, I think these are the things you would want to keep out of. I mean, like you want to find out about any of like leakages essentially sooner than later, because like you don't want to be, what was that? What we were talking about?
Oh, you don't want to be those like the vibe coded ones that got super popular, and then they like their whole like. I think one thing that I've noticed that the AIs don't do is they're kind of relaxed on API security. I don't know if you guys have talked about that. Like, most of the time we're writing these things on Next, and they create like an API like protocol for you, and sometimes they don't like really like put in security for it. So even if it's just like, hey, tell your AI, hey, I want my API to be password protected, and put that in the env file, right? Because like that way only you can call your APIs. And if you want to make a public one for someone later, that's fine. But like, I think that's how a lot of these things got in trouble, is like they're not protecting the things that should be. Like I think the one with the app with all the driver's license images, right? They just created an S3 bucket and didn't make it private, right? So it's like, like making sure. The last step I always try and do, again, if it's after analytics, is like, hey, I want to make sure this is secure and only I can access these APIs and stuff. And so it'll go through a little bit more extra work, but it'll try and tighten some of that stuff up. But if you're like, hey, I want this to be password protected to where only my website can call these APIs, it'll lock it down, I think, pretty well. And that'll give you a really good sense of security from that. So, because a lot of times, these things just leave them public, and that's a little scary.
Absolutely. Matthias, hope your connection is working fine now. Do you have any questions before we move on to the next part?
Yeah, sorry for my connection. It's raining a lot. Both my Wi-Fi and phone are not with good reception, but it should work well.
Cool. So we've covered the deployment platforms. Yeah, you covered like railway, you've covered things like, so maybe we could like talk about a bit like, I'm just thinking like in ways that, like you mentioned railway, right? Like I use railway for building things like Telegram bots, for example, and then like you have Versal, which is more for like static front end websites, not static, but like your front end website. Like, so some of the like tools that you would recommend for like beginners and vibe coders, like to just get familiar with, and that would actually make your life easier. So you don't actually have to go down into the weeds and trying to figure out how things work. And we could even like here make a quick intro to Glyph as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think, Vercel has taken over kind of what I used to use for Heroku, right? Like, 'cause I didn't used to know how to like launch to things, and I find Railway easier for me than Vercel nowadays because of how you can just drag and drop things. Anything where I can like, if I don't, because like I didn't know how to set up really like a contract poller, which is like you're basically tracking, and maybe you guys have talked about this, but like basically just following the entire blockchain and just listening for events, and then you're storing that in a database, which I did for my Mintataurus project. Setting that stuff up was so easy, and my buddy Coffee was like, you need to use Railway because it's like literally like websites here and other projects here, so it's just like no one wants to have to like go in and type things and do like, if I can drag and drop things, and then you just I could probably show you my code, I guess. Like I could show you how it works if that's okay with everybody. Give me a second to log in. Is that okay? Are we allowed to do that?
Of course.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let's see what we're doing here.
The more step by step, the better.
Yeah, like it's not going to be like, it's also in dark mode. I can't see shit. Hold on 1 second. Oh, pardon my French. Guys, talk amongst yourselves for 1 second while I try and get this to look a little bit better for y'all guys.
Yeah. Maybe Matthias, you could talk about like the Versal versus Railway, for example. Because like my experience has been like I use Railway a lot for like things like Telegram bots or things like APIs and things that have to be like persistent and always online, whereas Versal
Depends
is for
on
more like Versal.
level of control you want to have. These services like Replit, Lovable, Bold, V0, they got very famous quickly with a lot of adoption because they abstract away the troubles, the hassles of deploying and managing web environments and web hosted environments from beginners. You can just click some buttons. I can even show that on V0. Click some buttons, connect to your domain, and that's it. They manage everything. They manage SSL, they manage uptime, distribution, edge, But sometimes you want to have control over things, especially to pay less because they charge a premium of 10x, sometimes 100x of the actual cost of bare metal. So sometimes you want to have more control. You want to have more a fine grain directions. You want to architect the whole backend. I find Railway better there because you can draw your flows, upgrade the machines, do load balancer. It's not as heavy as going to AWS and doing that directly, but it still give you a lot of control and for a good pricing and good flexibility. It's serverless, so you would have those easy to use for beginners group. You would have this middle that is not that hard to use, but will give you a little more control, and then going directly to AWS, DigitalOcean, Google, hiring the bare metal, and then build on top of that. That is like the senior path, the most complete control path that you could get.
Yeah, I agree. And I find, so here's this real quick. This is just like Railway, right? This is my like little setup for my Mintataurus website. So what I had was can you see my mouse? Yeah, okay. So I had my website here, which is like its own like GitHub repo. And what's really cool is it shows you all these things where I messed up. The classic update, commit message. Don't do that. Make sure you use real messages, especially if you're working with someone else. I work by myself, so it doesn't matter. I'm just, doing all these things. But just nice is like, you see it set into my GitHub here. It's a Minotaur site. But what's really cool is because I have a couple of different environments, I have this Minto poller, which is the contract poller, right? It's also set into a GitHub repo, but a different repo. It's the Minto poller because it's doing a different action. And so I didn't set it all up in one. But what's really cool is I think you guys can see it's a little dark, but like I have this arrow dot, 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 with an arrow pointing to this Postgres dot, 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 dot. So what's really cool about this is I'm sharing this database between two projects, right? So this poller here is just running through the blockchain. Every time ApeChain updates itself, I'm looking for events. Basically, I'm looking for the tournament. Like when someone enters the Coliseum and fights, I'm making sure to pick that up, do some stuff, and then making it to where like it's saved to our database, and then the Minotaur site can pull it kind of live and do that stuff. So what's really nice about this is like, you can add all these new things here if I wanted to, right? Like if I wanted to add another database, if I wanted to add like a function, serverless functions, which is a little bit further down the road for everybody, but like it's really, really like cool stuff that you can add here and just drag and drop. And what's really cool is like, once I added this Postgres here, I think there was a place where I forget where I did it at when I first set it up, but like you basically literally just dragged and dropped over here and it connected itself. It dropped the connection, the connection string, which is the actual like, the way you talk to the database, all to it. So all hands off. And then you just kind of launched it and it ran on its own. Back in the day, that would be like, you'd have to do all the stuff manually. You'd have to like, it's kind of like what Matthias said, is like, you'd have to set up the database, get it running, get stored, get all the access set up, and then you get the connection string and send it over. But now that all this stuff does it for you. And what's nice now is like, if the Minto poller crashes, which it does from time to time, I get an email about it, which is great. I just get the email, come over here, kick it, and then it goes again. And so Vercel is very similar. I would show you Vercel, but I'm logged into the other side one and I can't show the other side, what it looks like on the other side stuff. So, but yeah, it's really, really cool. You could, like it's so great about this stuff is, it's just so easy. Like, you have your variables here that you need to set up. So here's all my different variables and stuff. I'm not going to click on any of these, obviously, but like, you have your Alchemy RPC. This is where I'm talking about, like, because this is production, you want to make sure this is set to the production Google API, because I'm doing this database URL, pusher out, pusher, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, battle private key, don't get that one. But yeah, don't paste private keys or even public keys really in your code. Try and put that in the env files. Just try to keep everything as hidden as possible. And make sure you don't ever push that up to your GitHub repo, because it's always there forever, and then you have to back it all out, and that's such a pain in the butt. But yeah, so that's just the gist of it. I just wanted to show you like this really cool one. I think I had this here for some reason. I forget what this is for. I think I was going to do something with it, but I don't know. I stopped doing it halfway through, so now I just have an orphan thing here. But quick and dirty like way of like how you can kind of maneuver some of these things. They make it so easy nowadays to where like oh, I need a database. Oh, click, and you can choose which ones you want to use and everything like that. And so the app is Railway. I'm sorry, I see someone asking that. I probably should have. Yeah, it's railway.com. But it's really, really great. Like, I love Vercel, but Railway just makes it a lot easier for some reason for me. So, yeah.
No, but this is great. It gives you an actual first-hand look of how it actually looks like, and you can just put pieces together. Mm-hmm. This is great. You actually see that how the pros do it. So it's except the commit history though. That part I don't recommend.
Hey man, I tell you what, every time I put updates as my commit message, I die a little inside. Like I know I shouldn't do it, but I'm in such a hurry because it's literally me doing it at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, okay, let me just do this. Okay, updates. And then, I don't know. Don't do it. If you work with anybody else, no one else has touched this code but me. If you work with someone and you see them post the word updates in their commit message, you should shame them. That should not be a commit message.
That's great. So we've covered the tools, like some of the pitfalls, things like so let's break it down a bit further. Like things like, how much do you actually care about, let's say, going live versus wait till it's perfect? That's one part of it.
Oh man. Oh boy. Yeah. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And I think for me is if you're working on an MVP and you're trying to get users and stuff like that, just ship it. I think it depends though. As I'm saying that, I'm yeah, but it depends, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is if you're doing an NFT project and you want a landing page where people mint and stuff like that, probably want that to be perfect, in my opinion, because that's people are going to go to that page probably once, and that's all you want them to go to. Is just they're the mint and that's it. Now, if this is a product that you're going to iterate on, here's the thing. This product, if you're building it now, this should not be the same code base you use in a year if you're still around. If you're still successful in a year, this code base should be gone away. This should be considered your MVP, product market fit, see if you can make it work. And if so, cool. Probably want to build it better, because I guarantee you the stuff that you built here will not be long-term sustainable. And that's okay. Like, that's totally fine. Like, that's not like a negative thing. Like, I used to be a freelancer where I built MVPs for non-technical founders. And I would tell them, I'm like, hey, this code will probably get you for a year. And if it's like, if it's actually like, if you guys have found product market fit and you're going, this should not be the code. I actually like tell you, like, you should delete this code and start over and make it more like sustainable from the ground up. But at least you've seen now that the product works, because more than likely over the next year, you're going to be like, you're going to be like trying to make this like Jenga piece thing stay up, and who knows what things you've slotted in to make it stand up. And like, it's just not going to be good. But once you get product market fit, that's when you can actually like build something that's really, really great.
Sounds good. So, I mean, like, we're halfway through the session. Like, I would love to like throw more questions at you, but I think like we could go.
Yeah, whatever you guys want. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to like whatever you guys want to do. I'm here for it. I get so excited without talking about this stuff.
Quickly, I'll go over some of the like questions that just stuck out. First one's from Croc. For ENV files, what are the standard naming conventions for environments leading up to prod? Many of us have env.local and are vibing with v0 or lovable. Could you highlight that question?
Yeah. I think for me, env.local, and then it depends on your setup. Like, our setup here at Yugo is pretty complex. So we have like env.staging, then env.production, and then we have like a .env. So it's like, it's kind of crazy. We have like a .env that has like standard variables that everything uses, and then the local, prod, and staging have like specific ones for those environments. When I'm doing things on my own, I just use env local and .env for prod. Like, I don't try and overcomplicate it, again, because like most of the things that I'm building right now is just, not throwaways, but like the Gob site, Minotaur sites, whatever. They'll be okay. Like, if I were to make a product, probably make them a little bit more specific, I think.
Sweet. Second one is from Gatsby9239. I just call him Gatsby. Shipping contracts is where I see the problem. With no audits, feel absolutely exposed.
Yeah, that's a really tough one. I think, you can vibe code a contract as much as anyone else can, right? And, I think that gets you 80% of the way, but that 20% is the most damaging, I bet. And so I think at a minimum, it's good to try and share, at least with the other developers, like, or like other folks who maybe like have worked on some things, like, I can't offer my time up because I'm so busy, like, we try and help people as much as we can, but like, it's tough because audits are expensive, but they're expensive for a reason, because there's a lot of like crazy things that can happen with contracts. And so I'm not condoning like just YOLO shipping at all. You should definitely have it peer reviewed at a minimum. Most of the time I got my stuff peer reviewed, like, but I'm lucky because I know I have like, base developer friends and stuff like that. But like, try and ask around, try and like just find other folks to even put simple set of eyes on it and things like that. But yeah, it's a tough one. Like, I think there's a market for audits that aren't insanely expensive, but that's hard because it's like they're expensive because you have really skilled people looking at them for like with a really, really like big magnifying glass. So I don't have a good clear answer for that. I think for me, it's like, make sure your contracts are as dumb as possible. And so, like, that way you're not trying to do too many complicated things, because as you get it more complicated, you get more worried. Like, the Coliseum contract I wrote was pretty complicated for me. And so I was just like, I got to get someone to look at this, because it's not just a minting contract. And, it's really, really wild. And, I think the best way I learn as well, though, is looking at other contracts. And like, if I'm like building something that I know is somewhat similar to other contracts, it's always good to like look at what other people wrote, just to kind of get your brain used to like seeing how the stuff is written. And yeah, I think simplicity is key. If you have functions, especially inside Solidity, that are super long, you're probably like going around the wrong way, just because that's probably too complicated. So try and make things as dumb as possible.
Nice.
And this is one of the benefits of using those pre-made contracts. I was showing Open Zeppelin contract standards, and then we saw Third Web standard contracts that you can apply from the dashboard. If you use these contracts, bro, trust me, these contracts have run more than $1 billion. They run that every month, so they are battle tested. So if you use one of these contracts out of the shelf and you don't change any line of code, you can use these without the audit on the contract. You can still make mistakes on your deployment chain. You can the deployment wallet. You can still make mistakes on the environment. You can still leak a key that you should not. You can still misuse the approvals. Yes, but at least the contracts, the Solidity code that people would audit, at least this one is safe when you take it out of the shelf. So unless you are a seasoned Solidity developer, wouldn't suggest for you to deploy something in production without doing the audit. You would ideally use one of those templates as we have in the tools that we showed.
Yeah, I think for the most part, if you're trying to do some of the more bare bones stuff, totally. Like, I think it's like if you're trying to just create some basic ERC-20, 721s, 1155s, like I feel like a lot of that code out there is somewhat already good and tested. I might see. I'm still nervous about saying, like, I'm still nervous about like, yeah, man, just YOLO ship it. Like, but just be careful because you're messing with people's money. You're messing with people's stuff. Whether depending on what you're doing, and if you're taking funds in through these mint things, the scariest thing, make sure that withdrawal contract works. That's reminding me of something. This is not in most of the like bare bones contracts, like for 721 and 1155s, maybe even ERC-20. What I think is super important is adding in a couple of extra functions, and you're gonna have to do your own research on this because I don't have them right away. But like most people put in like a withdrawal function for like ERC-20, right? So like, give me whatever. If it's 8, give me that. If it's ETH, give me that. But also make sure you maybe make withdrawal 7 like an NFT function. Because here's the thing. Sometimes people accidentally send NFTs or things to those contracts and they're stuck there forever. Funnily enough, this happened with the Minotaur's contract, and someone sent stuff to that one because they had that address paste. And they're like, I don't know what to do. I think I accidentally sent them to that. I was like, I have a withdrawal function, so I will grab them back and send them back to you. And so sometimes it's just, I think with Solidity, you want to always try to be proactively like defensive, making sure you've covered as many bases as you can. What kind of things that like you may think, well, who's going to send NFTs to this? You never know. No one's going to send like, a shit coin to this. You never know. So make it to where you can pull whatever you want out if you want to be able to do that, so things don't get locked in there.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, yeah, templates are great, like they're already like battle tested, but there's also no shame in like forking an existing contract.
Yeah,
there's a contract that already exists. I mean, like if you look at some of the top protocols, they are like, I mean, they've actually built once, and then I think my doorbell's ringing. Sorry about that. So yeah. So yeah, I mean, like those contracts are already there and they're battle tested, and a lot of protocols they actually fork an existing, like Uniswap was forked in our. I mean, I used to work for ALMs in the past, and essentially like if someone actually builds it, and then everyone else is like, okay, these are the contracts, they become the industry standard, and everyone else is like, okay, now we're just using these from now on.
Yeah, I mean, look what Azuki did, right? Like, I mean, they did 721A. I mean, like it's. You never know, like, and then Limit Break's doing 721C. Like, there's all these folks who do different things and stuff like that. So, withdraw all the things, in my opinion. Make it to where you can withdraw that gets sent to there. Then, if you want to hold it hostage, whatever you want to do, but at least you have it and not just sitting there looking at it in a contract. I think, and then just, I'm trying to think, because, like, there's some, don't be too clever. Like, don't try and be too clever with some things, right? Like, if you're like, oh, I'm going to lock it out after we set this once, because we're never going to need it again. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you do, right? You don't have to like overprotect yourself or like, I realize while I say that, I know I did something in my Gobs contract that locked it forever, but whatever. Like I'm a professional. Don't worry about me. But like, just don't try and be too smart. Again, when I'm saying like try and be dumb, it's okay to be dumb. Like if you're like, I'm going to set like this URI and I'm never going to change it again. Like you may, and it's okay for like your first couple of like projects, make it a little bit more flexible. Like, like to make sure you get like the experience, right? The reason why, I feel more comfortable doing some more of the wild things is because my previous projects, let me tell you that my first NFT project that I launched, I put the price too high, but I didn't set, I couldn't reset it. I couldn't change it because I was like, this is going to be fine. This is going to be totally fine. And no, the mint price was too high and I couldn't change it. So I was like, all right, well, that's all right. I'll just sit there forever until either Ethereum gets way too low, or just people for some reason want to get it for that high. But you know what I mean? So it's like I tried to be too clever. And that's also another thing. Sorry, I'm going to rant now. Is like setters and getters in the contract. Make sure you have them. Make sure like anything that you want to set, make sure you can always reset it again at some point. Like even if you think you won't, like anything that you have at the top that you're hard coding, if you've hard coded it, you're probably something's going to happen. You're going to want to change it. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe I hard coded it. At least for your first few contracts, be flexible.
Absolutely. So outside of that, I think we've done these questions. So actually, like now we could actually like take a bit of focus and go towards going live and launching on mainnet. So essentially, so I mean, like the whole process of going live and then like posting your contract, deploying your contract on mainnet, all of that. So that's like the segue into that section. And meanwhile, I'll just like quickly answer the door 1 sec.
For sure. Matthias, go ahead. I'm sure this is some of your stuff, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to start exactly from the question from Croc about this EMV file, because this is the part where just contextualizing, we are in a camp for vibe coders, and this is where things can get a little out of hand, because it's true. Some people are commenting here, oh, vibe coders never heard of git ignore. They don't know what is file, how to properly use Git and environments and all. So the ideal world would be spending a couple weeks to get used to the content, listening to sessions and all that are out there. I did a bunch of those. But as some shortcuts, because inside the time frame of this camp, we need to have some projects going live. And we need them to have security practices. We need them to have users now. We can shorten this a bit by using these tools that we suggested. So the first process that I would suggest, let me share my whole screen here. Oops. My entire screen here. Okay. So the first process that I would suggest is keep vibing. Like we use the third web MCPs to adjust, to change contracts. This was one of the contracts that we used in this camp. If you recall, is this Gorilla Coin Flip project that we did. I guess it was on the second or in the third session, something like that. And then we imported we started using Cursor. Then I had problems with credits, and then we went to mean stuff. So remember how we implemented the chain connection? It was just with English. I don't even need to see the code itself. I can close the code. And one of the things that I can ask is like connect. I can pick an agent, like connect to a chain mainnet instead of Curtis testnet. And if you give enough context, for example, here we have this LLMs.txt. We did that in this camp a couple times. So if I give enough context, LLMs.txt, the AI agent should know what to do, should know what chain address to point to, the chain ID, the token names and all. So I would suggest to keep vibing. But the environment is the important part. Having your env well protected, your wallet, deployment wallet well protected, your mainnet balance safe from possible misuses and mishaps that might happen in the middle of the process. So keeping your environment safe is the most complex part. Coding is not the most complex part anymore. If my internet allows here, I should be able to complete this change, this prompt from the AI that should find the correct lines of code to change the network configuration and make that change in my project for me. Okay, let me see if I still have, can everyone still hear me? Is my connection holding?
Yeah, it's holding.
Okay, that's
Meanwhile,
good.
James, actually have a question for you. So you said like you have a separate deployer wallet for mainnet, and then so the funds from the user funds, let's say someone's minting like the funds, so do they go into the deployer wallet or they go to another wallet? I think like that's also important to have that distinction.
Depends on what you want to do with your taxes. I didn't say that. I think it depends on what you want. I think it depends on what you want to do with them. Like, like I think some folks like to have it go straight to the deployer, then it goes somewhere, or you could just have it to where it goes to you, or there's payment splitters. There's like, it all depends. There's so many options. I think the easiest thing to do in like when you look at the code, in my opinion, when I see a withdrawal function, if I see it actually going back to the deployer, that probably makes me the most safe. Because if you like, sometimes you look on there, you see withdraw to, and it has this like random wallet addresses. You're like, what is all this about? Like, what's this? It feels a little bit more suspect. So like, the more simple things are, the more easy it is for me to understand, the less I have to question, the more I feel comfortable like putting funds into things.
Gotcha.
Sorry, that was like a very political non-answer, but it depends. It's like with all things programming, it depends.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So it's like now you're actually like, we're at this stage where Matthias is like, sorry for the technical glitch. Essentially, we're looking at how do you actually swap your testnet for mainnet, and like, so things essentially what's actually going on is that like all EVM networks more or less, so they work similarly under the hood. Your contracts is going to work the same way. We get crypto bullies asking what tax is. So so the contracts, they work in the same way. The networks, they are like also identical. Like it would be rare to actually have your mainnet and testnet configurations actually like quite far off, and when it comes to like the way they work underneath. So like you would deploy a contract on testnet. If you're happy with it, you actually like just migrate that to the mainnet, and essentially it should work the same way as it would on the testnet. That's why that's like testnet is your playground. And now you're live, the funds are live. You're not using Curtis ape anymore. You're using real ape from either your own ape or other your user's ape, and now you're ready to go. And that's all the difference is. Essentially, it's like small network configuration. That's all you need. Instead of pointing to the testnet, you're pointing to the mainnet, and you're ready to go live. I mean, like, think about it. It's really small. Yeah.
There's one thing, it's not really applicable to like these orbit chains and L2s and stuff, but if you're ever doing something on Ethereum, like the cost on the testnets is extremely cheaper than mainnet. So like you may be doing all these transactions and all this stuff on testnet, and you're like, oh, this is so easy. And then when you get to Ethereum mainnet, it's gonna be very expensive. So just that's something like we probably don't need to worry about with this one, but like just it's something that's always good to know is like there is sometimes like a cost change when you go into mainnet. Essentially not with these other chains, but like just something that always it's always something I keep in mind. It's like how do you optimize for gas, but that's that's a whole other ball of wax we don't need to get into for all of us.
This gas optimization stuff itself could be a boot camp on its own, like gas golfing and all, right? Yeah, but going back to the vibing of changing the code. So if you don't know how to change the code, you can just ask the AI. The AI will make the changes for you. For example, it changed the chain by the ID, and then the third web client can pick up this chain correctly now. Should be the mainnet. If you read all the documentation, which I totally recommend you to do, you should see this kind of definitions there. But if you don't have time for that, if you just want to go to market quickly to get your clients, get early feedback, this is a very quick way to deploy something, let's say 4 or 5 weeks like we are doing, without going through all of a formal course. So this works. Now it's configured. Maybe you want to change the contract address, maybe not manually, but we do have a variable here for the contract address. In the line 107, if you ask the AI would tell you that as well. And we define it as this constant. Actually, when we ask the AI to do this, a couple sessions ago, we defined it as a constant. Changing things directly in the code is not that recommended. Usually you put that in an environment configuration, because in testnet, you could have a contract address, and then in mainnet, you could have another contract address. But don't worry about that much. You can hard code things in this camp. I'm giving you permission just for a shortcut. What I wanted to stress is the difference from your development environment, this thing that I have here, and my .env here, going back to Croc's question now. So how to separate my .env to the cloud and all. So The development environment is where you're going to have your private keys for deploying smart contracts now. This should not go to the application. The application should not know your private key. Okay, I like to do a metaphor with cooking, with food. So when you have your kitchen where you cook your stuff, you don't give access to your fridge to people. You make a cake or pancakes or eggs with bacon, whatever dish. I'm hungry. Yes, it's early here. I didn't have breakfast yet, but I'll probably have eggs with bacon. So I'm not going to give access to my guests eating at my house, or if I have a restaurant. So those are going to be separate environments. No one can open your fridge and take whatever is there, right? Same thing with your env files. So what we're going to do is, after I finish doing things in my local environment with Hard Hat, with Foundry, or I do it there in Third Web dashboard, I do it in a separate environment. I put my private key there. I deploy my contract. I can do that in Remix. There are a lot of tools that can do that. Then inside your application, inside your actual application, you would have those environments here. And then the question is how to get that for cloud environments, for example, vibing with vZero or Lovable and all. So you would get those environments that you have in your .env local, or some things that you hard coded and all. You would go for the cloud platform. So for example, vZero, we have this environment here where we're coding. We are communicating with a local environment through GitHub. We can push changes. We can pick changes. Everything that I push here on GitHub gets published here as well. And then I can pick those environments sync, yes. But I'm not going to use these environments on my local environment. For example, deploying applications, deploying contracts and all. Inside the app, what I'm going to do is go to the hosting counterpart. In this case is Vercel. If you're using Bolt, it's going to be StackBlitz. If you are using Lovable, it's going to be there. In Replit, it's Replit itself. So you're going to pick the project. For example, this Gorilla Coin Flip. The vZero projects that we have in vZero, they get hosted in Vercel. We're going to open this project. Let me increase the zoom a bit. So it's the same thing, the same link. And the same link to the repository as well. See, they are all linked. They are all part of the same thing. You don't need to worry with plugging them and now configuring the backends, the links and all the SSL. They're all going to be linked already. You're going to go to Vercel. And then there is like a field in settings. So you're probably landing overview. You go up there to settings. And then you go for environments. Okay. So yeah, monitoring. So we spoke about that. Vercel is trying to push us to get the monitoring. Okay, that's a good suggestion, but I'm going to dismiss that for now. So instead of overview, you go for settings and then environments. So you can have different environments in production, in preview, in development. You can pick you can create more environments if you need, but those three are good. And you can pick different environment variables for each of those. So, for example, in all environments, or just in production, or just in preview, you can put different variables here, and then you're going to or import a .env or copy and paste. So, for example, this is my Third Web client ID. Yes, I'm leaking it live for 1,000 people. Yes, I trust all of you, every single of you. Okay, I trust all of you with my public key. That's going to be a disaster. Ideally, you don't do that, okay, people? Don't publish your key out there. It's just that this Third Web client ID, it's made to be public. There's no problem of being public. When it starts with next public, it's going to be public anyway. So this is not such a big deal. But if you leak your private key online, oh my God, 100% chance you're going to get drained, okay? Happened to me in the past. So this is a way for you to manage your environments in the cloud. Going back to a question, Croc, you would get with Lovable, you have the environment variables there, with Bolt, with Replit. With vZero, you need to go to Vercel, go for your project. You should have the environments there, go for environment variables, add them here and click on save. When you do that, already exists. Branch undefined. That's a very weird error. That's a very weird error, but okay. Already exists for the target. So it's there already. Oh yeah, it is there. Yeah, it is there. Sorry, I forgot I had added that in the past. Sorry about that. But it's here. So I have the variable. Let me remove that. Let me remove. Okay. So I forgot that I had that in the past. So you would come here to your environment. You would click on save, and then you would work. You would add here. You would need to redeploy your app. Click on redeploy. And then you would use this new environment variables that you have. Okay. Then your website would work. The application would work. For example, here we added a token counter, if I recall it correctly, and then you would see that, for example, in mainnet, directly correlating to the .env that you have. You would go to the cloud. You would have this definition directly there. Okay. So that was not staged. That was exactly the content that I wanted to show. Thank you very much, Croc, for asking this question, because I see a lot of people with this problem. Okay, look, if we have time, I would like to demonstrate how to create a custom domain as well. A lot of people ask me that.
Oh,
They
yeah,
don't
yeah,
want
sure.
to have. Yeah, let me show that real quick as well. So you might have your project deployed to my $1,000,000ape.lovable.com or my project.versal.com, right? So I would suggest
myapeIsamazing.com.
My ape is amazing. Yeah, I would suggest going to an actual domain so that you have more credibility. Okay, especially people, because there is a very common attack called a phishing attack, where people try to fake your domain, fake your credentials, even your deployment wallet. Having a domain, a ENS for that, or something that marks your wallet is a famous wallet, is very good, because then you can protect your users from phishing attacks. This is a problem when you get big, but you never know when you're going to get big. Maybe a project is going to be worth $1 billion. So having a good domain that you can protect your users from phishing attack is very important. Okay, for security reasons, a lot of reasons. So I would suggest, let me get my entire screen here again. I would suggest for you to attach a domain. My project right now is published on V0 Gorilla Coin Flip.versal.app. This is very easy to scam, to phish, to create a V0 Gorilla Coin Flip, a different one, and then scam people with that, or fake emails for that. You don't want this. Okay. So what I would suggest, let me see my screen sharing correctly. Yes. So I would suggest for you to go for domains. The same thing, go to Versal, you would land on overview, go for settings, and then go for domains here. And here we can add any domains that you have bought by using this button, add domain here. And then you would need to do some configurations. Okay, let's say I want apechain.com. Alok, could you publish my project to apechain.com, please? Just do some configuration there real quick. Of course not, right? So you would point that to a domain that you control. Okay, let's say you have that domain like on Cloudflare or NameDaddy, or I do recommend one that I find super cute, that's Pork Bun. We could have one called Ape Bun, maybe. So you would find some domain manager where you can park your domains there, where you can buy domains. Let's see how much is apebun.com. Let me search for this domain. And let's see, apebun.com is not available, but I can buy apebun.inc. And then we post the rear pictures of ape, only $51. Okay, that can work out. So you would buy this domain with your credit card, you would check out something like that, and then you would have control over this domain. You wouldn't have control of a very important piece called name servers, which would resolve the domain. When you type apebun.inc, it would resolve to those IP addresses, to those servers that are important for resolving the paths of where to look for this website. Oh my God, it renews at $2,000. For some reason, I'm getting a $51, $2,000 domain for $51. What is that? It seems like a good
You're
deal.
early.
But I'm not going to buy it unless it's like a very good idea, but whatever. So the name servers are one important configuration so that it can mingle around with the domain. Put that in Cloudflare or even in Vercel. You can put your domains directly in Vercel if you want. Or you can do the DNS configuration directly in the provider. Like, let's say you go for Namecheap DNS configurations, or GoDaddy, which is very famous DNS configurations. You would have some configurations like that. You would put, if I can get this image to show up. My internet's horrible today. Yes, I'm freezing a little. But you would have something like that. You would have inside your domain registrar, you would have some options for you to put those records there. It seems complicated, but it's just actually following the instructions. So let's say I want to put my website to apebun.inc. I just need to follow the instructions correctly. So I'm going to click on save, and then it's going to ask to put a record at the root with this IP. Oh my God, IP records DNS, that's super difficult. No, actually, you just need to follow the instructions. You're going to go for your domain registration, and then you're going to add domain type. You are going to pick record type. You're going to pick A. And then you're going to have the second field, host, and then you're going to put at, exactly at, which means the root. And then you're going to have value, and then you are going to copy this IP and paste there. 3 simple steps. You don't need to understand all of the internet infrastructure behind. And if you want to have www, it's not necessary, but it's possible. A lot of people want to do www for some reason. It would add another record of the type CNAME. What's the CNAME? That's too complex. No, actually, you're going to find a drop-down type, and then you're going to see CNAME. You select CNAME, and then the name of the record would be www, World Wide Web, and the value would be this. It's just copy and pasting. It's not that complex. Okay, and then when you do that, you would have the configuration working. I do have some projects in, I guess I do have some projects in my account that are configured to some domains. Let me see. For example, this one, I created this website called VibeSpace. Just launched it last week here in SF. Very cool website. So in the domain settings, I have here this domain configured to vibespace.so. It's valid. And www.vibespace.so, which is valid. And that's it. You solved a huge complex configuration step by step, by just clicking on some buttons. So you don't need to actually manage the whole server infrastructure and all. If you want to have like email, if you want to have like all the redirects and all, maybe you want to look at it, having an email server and all. But for now, just for hosting a website in a valid domain, it's there. So if I go, for example, for vibespace.so, it opens, it is configured. It is a project on v0, yes, but it goes from my domain. It's not needed to use .v0.app. You can put your own domains there. Okay, those would be my 2 suggestions for you to go live with your project. Once you do that, you're ready to fill the final homework. Okay, you want to stress on that, maybe, Alec, filling the homework for this week, and then we're going to select the best projects to demo.
Yeah, so essentially the goal is to actually have your product live, because again, like, you don't want your final product to be something zero versal.app. You want it to actually have like a cool kick-ass name with its own domain where your users can actually just go on and log. I mean, like, or like, for example, for ApeChain, you would go to apechain.com, right? You wouldn't go to apechain dash Versal Network v0.1 something something, no, right? Like, you want apechain.com to be your domain. So essentially that's your entry point. Like, that's where your users actually go to. It's like facebook.com, apechain.com, all of these, like those, that's your entry point. You want to get your domain, and underneath is like essentially the same website that we actually saw. Like, it just redirects it to that site which you already have live, and now you're ready to take on your first users. What's the Mintotors website? Mintotors.xyz?
I think so.
Okay.
I think I bought both. So let's see here. No, yeah, it's XYZ. Mentotors.xyz. Yes, it is.
Was it hard to find a domain? Or was it easy?
I think because it was easy. Because like I mean, Mintotars is a weird word, right? And so luckily I got that one. But the hardest thing is figuring out the URL. The hardest thing, like websites, easy to build. But figuring out a GD domain that actually can work for your stuff is, I use hover.com. I know other folks use other things. I like hover.com because it also gives you just like a full list of like all these things that you can, like all these different domains you can use. And you're like, oh, cool. And it kind of gets your brain kind of thinking about all those other stuff and just different possibilities and stuff like that. So it's interesting. Like, you also want to avoid being too cheeky. Like, just keep it simple. Keep it simple. Like, don't try and because I've been burned by this. Like, oh, I'll do my website.is or something, like, try and think of like a clever like thing to end. It's never works out well. Just try just keep it simple.
So, Matthias.
Domain bots are always tricky. But that's it. After deploying to mainnet, configuring your environment variables in your application, keeping your wallet safe. I even asked this question in the forum. What measures did you use for keeping your wallet safe? Okay, that don't share that with everyone, but we need to make sure that you at least consider that for this camp. We don't want no more than T apps on ApeChain. We need at least some security guardrails here. So deploy your app to your contracts to mainnet, configure these environments your app, keep your wallet safe, and start having revenue. And then tell us in the form how many users you have, how much of traction you have, and then we're going to pick the top projects for demoing. And the demo day has been rescheduled. Okay, you're going to find all of the information in the Luma page. Let me see if I can share that real quick.
Yeah, the demo takes place after ApeFest week now.
Yeah, so after ApeFest, after you recover your kidneys and liver, after you hydrate a lot, you're going to have the demo day on the 28th. Okay, so it's important that you do this homework so that we can see your project there, see your progress from homework 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you skip it, some of the past homeworks, a good time to pick it. And we're going to have this last session on the 28th with the top projects showcasing what you have built. Okay. Also, we asked in the form for you to record a short video. This should be good promotion material. We could put that in the social media, create a big thread, a Twitter thread with everyone there. Okay. So even before in the 28th, you should be working on your promotion, recording a screen. Could suggest some apps like Loom and some others that you can record the screen and your face, or if you don't want your face, just the screen, and voice it over. Just some light production there, because you want this to be good for social media. You want people to follow your project, right? And then the top projects are going to be invited to demo here in the 28th, same time.
Also,
Sounds
like
good.
the live demos sometimes, I mean, like, depends if you have the demo gods with you or not. So just like have a 3 to 5 minutes demo. Like, on Loom is the most popular tool I would recommend. It has a free tier. You could you could have yourself like in the corner whenever you pick. You can share your screen. Like, you can even edit in Loom now. or you can always like download the file and then like edit it on your own. But essentially like 3 to 5 minutes actually showcasing what you actually built, how you built it, like, and how to access it, and it's like ready to go for your first users. And then if you actually need help with going live, and like, I mean, of course, like going back to all the materials, like you can always watch them on your own pace. If you still need help, like feel free to reach out to either Mateus, me, like you can ping James as well. I'm sure he has a lot of free bandwidth next week. But
Yeah, nothing's going on next week. I'm
yeah.
smooth sailing for the next couple of weeks. Just trying to find things to do, honestly. So yeah, no, but for real, like you can DM me on Twitter, and if I can get to it, I will. Like I'm more than happy to. Like I think don't get upset if I don't answer for weeks on end because it gets busy or I get like ADHD and I'm over here and there. But if I can, I'll try to answer.
Questions regarding the tools that you could use. So someone mentioned about audits. There is an Arbitrum grant for contract audits, and it actually extends to orbit chains as well. So if you actually, I mean, again, like don't go around spending like 5 figures on your first audit on a product that you just like in MVP stage, like focusing on your like launch first. And as you scale, you can start looking at audits. You don't need an audit on day one. So yeah, so I mean, like, but if you are actually building something on DeFi, you're actually like holding user funds, then that is an option as well. There are plenty of opportunities. Happy to share them with you over DMs or something. And same thing with coming with tools. Like if you wanna, let's say, index some data. What is indexing essentially is you're pulling data from the blockchain to use in your own app. James mentioned earlier he was pulling data for the what was the Colosseum. So essentially, you're pulling data from the blockchain. You have things like we have partners, indexing data partners, for example, like we got Gold Sky, we got Orme, we've got the Graph, we got Sequence. I mean, like we got like indexing tools. Same thing if you want to pull out like any, if you want to use any oracles, we have Bit, we've got API 3, we've got Chainlink for price feeds, like anything. Like feel free to go through documentation, ping me. You have all those tools at your disposal. So it's essentially making your life easier. Any data that you want to pull on ApeChain, we have like a bunch of tools and redundant options for your build based on your skill level, and essentially like, I mean, like whatever you want to use, right? Like all those tools are there for you. RPCs, yes. Like if you actually like have to use a bunch of like API sorry, RPC calls, like let's say you have something that actually like pulls data like quite frequently, we can offer you like some nodes which have higher limits, so you don't. I mean, like because like the public endpoint actually has a rate limit, which means like you can't do like a bazillion transactions in 1 second, for example. But like if you want to dedicate a node, happy to arrange that for your use case as well. So essentially, like any piece of infra that you need for your build, like feel free to get in touch. We can hook you up with that.
And the third web plan that we got with the coupon code can give you a lot of calls per month as well if you're using third web SDK to do the ApeChain connection, right?
Yeah, and third web actually is like a whole like suite of tools. So you actually have everything bundled in. You have RPCs, you have like, I mean, you have like if you wanted to use like wallet connections, things like that, gasless payments. It's like you actually have like a bunch of options. And the starter plan, which I shared by email, should be plenty for you to actually go live. You can start using everything for your first set of users without actually like hitting any limits anytime soon. And that plan is valid for 2 months. So like for the next 8 weeks, you're good to go. Even beyond that, I mean, like, but I mean, you'll get a sense of what you can actually do with it. Understand like your usage, you get all your stats, things like that.
And this just a reminder: only who completes the homework. Okay, if you haven't completed your third week homework and you are 1 week delayed, you complete that. Alec will send you the coupon codes. If you haven't received it, please check your spam folder. Okay, Alec has been spamming too many people with his account, it seems. So sometimes his emails are landing in the spam folder. So check there as well to see if you have received it.
Yeah, I've sent them from my ApeChain email, so just look into spam. I hope it doesn't go to spam, but like if it does, just check that. Lastly, like you've actually like all your teams have actually worked like quite hard over the last few weeks, and I think like I always believe in this like 80-20 ratio. Like first 80% is is smooth sailing. It's actually the last 20% that actually like getting it out through the door. And I think like it's common for everyone, like polishing it, like cleaning things up and making it live. That last 20% is actually going to require a lot of effort as well. So don't get discouraged. Feel free to get help, ask someone for help, and then just like put it out there live and like focus on the users rather than product. Yeah, spam Alok's DMs. Absolutely. Go ahead. I mean, that's what I'm here for. If you need any help, like like I'm available on TG, open a ticket on Discord, like just message me on X, like anything works.
That's wonderful. Wonderful.
Absolutely. So I guess we have reached the end of the session. James, final thoughts?
Once you get it launched to production, it's all easy. It's all downhill from there. It's the easiest part. It's just launching the website, getting users, making sure it's making money, getting attention. Easy peasy, right? No, it's the hardest part, honestly. Like this is actually the easy part, but it's okay to fail. It's like your first thing out the bag's probably not going to be a success, and that's okay. Take your learnings and build on from that, and just keep having fun. I think like the biggest thing is like this is probably speaking to the choir for folks who are like listening to this anyways, but like make sure you're doing something that you love doing, because that way when you talk about it, it's obvious when you talk about it that like if you're just trying to do something, if you're just trying to do something that you're like, oh, I know I'm gonna get money from this, and you don't really care, it'll show. But if you actually love what you're doing and put that out there, it'll sell it easier. So just make sure you're doing what you love and have fun with it.
Absolutely. I remember, like it's as James said, like the first product may not be actually a success, but now you've actually seen the whole process of like when your first spark of an idea, take it into an MVP, turn it into a website, it goes live. You can actually make a first transaction. You're actually like it's actually living. It's a living thing. It's on the blockchain. You can actually interact with it, and it's eternal, right? It's your tool. It's your baby, and then like you can actually you've seen the process. And now the next one, like it only gets easier from here. I mean, okay, like quotes on that, but still, like you know the process now. All you have to do is like iterate on that, and then keep coming back, and then that's all.
Magical. It's not a thing. If it's going to be successful, no, it's just when, and then you've got to keep pushing, enduring until you get there. That's great. Great wisdom here.
All right. I think we can call it off at this note. Thank you so much, James, for your time. I know,
of course.
You got like a bazillion things on your plate right now, but thanks for having.
Of course. And please, if you're at Vegas, come say hello. Don't be shy. And feel free to ask me questions. I love answering questions in person too. So if you're like, hey, I've got this one thing I'm doing, blah, 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 feel free to answer me. But yeah. All right. I'm actually going to bounce out. I'm a little late. So thanks for having me. And yeah, we'll see y'all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.